What's up, golf addicts, tour junkies, the Masters? It's the best time of the year, although it's weird because there's no patrons. It's November. It's all kind of things. But we're excited to have our friend, multiple-time guest on the Tour Junkies podcast, and fellow Augusta native, Mr. Charles Howell III. Charles, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, man. How you doing?
Well, I'm all good. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. You brought up a November Masters. I think all of us growing up in Augusta, we've seen a lot of things. I never, ever, ever thought I would see this. So 2020 is once again showing itself.
It's unreal. I think I made this statement the other day. Like, if you could go back to your, January self and tell them, hey, the Masters is going to be in November this year, and no patrons are going to be allowed to play it, and College Game Day is going to be on the par 3 course on Saturday. How do you think it got there? Would you have ever in a million years dreamed it would look like this?
No. And if you would have told me even like the U.S. Open is in September and we're just going to cancel the British Open, the Ryder Cup, we're going to delay it to, I would have never gotten here.
Insane. Well, Charles, you really don't need much of an introduction. Everybody knows who you are. You've been on the show a bunch of times. PGA Tour winner, PGA Tour ATM machine. We're excited to have you on. Obviously, growing up in Augusta, you're coming to play the Masters here this week. And talk to us about what you think. I mean, you grew up here. You've been on tour for a while. You played in a bunch of Masters. What do you think this is going to look like? Or what have you heard? What have you seen? What do you anticipate how it will look any different than it would in April?
Well, I think first off, we restarted golf the end of June, and it's been awkward without fans. We've had a couple of sporadic, like I've played a couple pro-ams. We've had a couple events with a certain amount of fans. I think going to the Masters with no fans is going to be the first time it really hits guys of, my goodness, this is awkward. So much of Augusta National, I really can't think of a famous or iconic picture there without a sea of gallery and people in the background, whether they frame a fairway or if they're cheering or if they're behind the 16th green. I think this is going to be the first event where it almost bothers players, where you're going to walk out there and just think, holy cow, what makes Augusta, a large part of it is the fans, not just the roars, but their presence and their excitement and everything. And when you walk, through that clubhouse onto the other side where the golf course is and to see nothing, I think it's going to be the first time it really catches players as like, oh my gosh, this is different.
What about course conditions and how it's going to play? As well as we do, Augusta weather can definitely change on a dime.
Yep.
In November. You can have really cool mornings and very pleasant afternoons like we're having right now here in Augusta. And we are just a few days away from Masters Week here. How do you think it's going to set up differently or play or conditions, and what have you heard?
I agree with you. Obviously, us growing up there, it can be cold in November, and I think the fairways will be softer. Anytime you've put overseed down fairly recently. I've heard all the Bermuda hasn't gone dormant, so there's some tight lies in certain areas. Could make some wedge shots into 13 and especially 15 off that downslope a little bit dicey. Chipping. Not that guys bump a lot of balls around those greens anymore, but that shot could be taken away from you if it's kind of soft and spongy. With the overseed recently going down and having to water that. I think the greens will be fine, with the sub-air machines and all that. I'm sure they'll be able to get those firm and fast. But I think the huge difference you'll see is the fairways. I don't think you'll see the big bounces of the balls off the tees. And so I think it'll play longer. Anytime a golf course plays longer, especially to these greens, it's going to play more difficult. The prospect of, lacing a 5-iron into that 5th green doesn't sound too much fun. But I think you're going to see a little harder golf course. I really do than April.
All right, so let's talk about Bryson. I mean,
Yeah.
Bryson's the odds-on favorite. He is one of the most polarizing people in golf right now, changing the game, you might say. So what are your thoughts on Bryson, what he's doing right now, what he plans to do at the Masters, and just in general, what do you think?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is when Bryson was an amateur and he, let's say, was like a lot skinnier than he is now, or smaller, whatever you want to call it, his ball speed was still 178. And when he wanted to, he could hit it and get it to low 180s. So we started off with a guy that already had speed. Now, what he's done, as much as the working out and the getting bigger and bulkier and gaining all the weight thing, he's also changed his golf swing. So I think a lot of factors went in. It wasn't just the Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you will. There was a change in his golf swing. There was change in equipment. There was a lot of other things. I think what he's doing is great. He's challenging a lot of norms, right? He's challenging a lot of the norms that we grew up playing golf with. And, I was paired with him, I was paired in front of him in Las Vegas a few weeks ago at TPC Summerlin, where he hit a couple of drives was unbelievable. And I've played that tournament every year starting in 2000. Where he drove the ball, I've seen people chip out to, but I've never seen drives go near there. And so, yeah, he is changing the game, and it'll be interesting to see what he does at Augusta. I mean, you still have to drive it straight at Augusta. I know people say that the fairways are wide and forgiving, and they're not as wide as people want you to think they are. You still got to drive the ball well there. And I mean, just like everybody else in the golf world, I'm excited to see what he does there as well. If he drives it straight and that far, it's a massive advantage, obviously, but you still got to do it.
So that's what I was going to ask. That's what I was going to ask, though, is because he's a favorite, and what would be the one thing that would, cause him to disappoint at the Masters? And so you think it would be if he just can't hit it accurate off the tee?
Correct. I mean, you look at, like number 11, for example, is obviously a really difficult hole there. Number 5 with the new tee box that's gone way back last year. Like, if he's going to hit driver off those tees, it's still narrow where he's driving that ball into. So, the 7th hole is another hole that's not a wide fairway down there. So he's still got to drive it straight. Now, if he drives it straight and hits it 400, massive advantage, and hats off to him. But so it will be interesting to see how all that works out.
Do you see yourself, at some point working in any of these social media tactics that he's doing? Anybody following you around with a camera or drone footage of your house or your workout facilities, anything like that? You going to be maybe hopping off your private jet into your Bentley? You looking to adapt any of that? Maybe brand yourself here, Charles?
Yeah, I'm telling you, at age 41, like in kids' years, you're not 9, you're 9.5, right? So I'm 41 and a half. And at my developed age, I realized I kind of am who I am. And I think, was it Kevin Kisner that said Bryson needs kids? Trust me, you throw a couple of kids in that mix, and this will slow down real quick.
Yeah. He made news this week too. He's going to be rocking DraftKings, which is obviously something we're big into.
Yeah, I saw that.
So maybe that'll break the seal for the rest of you guys, and you guys can get some money. And we feel like we've helped raise DraftKings, and so our money is now Bryson's money. Is how we
correct. And yes, exactly. And you're owed that. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Speaking of, all right, so I kind of want to go with Augusta, because obviously Augusta and the PGA Tour are completely unrelated. Compare how the PGA Tour is handling COVID with what you've seen from Augusta. What are the requirements that you guys are going to have in terms of COVID and handling things at the Masters? We've been texting with a bunch of our caddy friends who are going to be here. Like, in the evenings, are you guys allowed to go to dinner? Are you having to lock down? Are most players staying on property? Are you having to? How's all that working with the Masters and COVID restrictions?
So what we've been told, and very similar to the PGA Tour, is we have to be there for testing. So for instance, I'll test on Sunday morning. You're not allowed on property. In fact, they won't even give you a credential until you show a negative test. So very similar protocol to the PGA Tour on that. And, you know, I think I like Augusta and the Masters, and they've relied heavily on the PGA Tour. We're using, you know, our same testing lab. We're fairly familiar with the process and the you know, the nurses and doctors that help us with it. And, you know, players have done a good job on this deal because we're not a bubble. Yeah. I mean, anytime you say bubble, I mean, we're traveling to a new city every week. We're staying in hotels. You got to eat. You got to find a gym. So, I mean, the very few positives we've had, it showed the players have done a really good job of that. And I think collectively as a group, they need some credit for that because it could have been a nightmare. And they've done a great job to keep us playing. You know, and then the Masters has just given us the same, you know, ideas and protocols. Like, listen, you guys don't want to mess this up and miss this golf tournament. So most guys do eat in at a rented house, or they will get takeout. I don't think you'll see guys out and about on the city at all.
So it's kind of personal responsibility.
Yes.
You know, why would you want to risk it and test positive here, which makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
I think that's incentive enough right there. I mean, nobody wants to miss the Masters. I mean, so you're going to take every precaution you can possibly do.
Exactly. And I think, but that's a huge driving force every week, right? Where guys are like, holy cow, I can't work if I test positive. Now, it's still said you can do everything right and test positive. But it is a huge incentivizing factor for guys to take every caution they can.
So when are you going to be tested after Sunday? Every day after? Or how's that?
So let's say like I'll test Sunday morning, and let's say I test negative, I get my credential. Then you're done testing for the week. Now every morning your temperature checked when you go on property. And the only people allowed on property will be those that have tested negative. So, for example, I'm allowed to bring one guest, so my wife will come out there. So she will also be forced to take a test, a COVID test. So let's say she's negative, I'm negative. She can drive me to the golf course and then drive out. But let's say my dad wanted to drop me off. He can't drive on property because he hasn't been COVID tested. So they're really secure on that realm of it. And then let's say I drive in on Tuesday morning and my temperature is above 100.4. Then I'll have to pull aside and go to a tent. They'll retake my temperature. Let's say I fail it again. Let's say it's 101 again. Then I will have to take another COVID test. I'm allowed to play, but when that result comes back, if that result would be positive, I would then be pulled off the golf course and go. So the actual brain poke will happen once that week, assuming you pass all the temperature checks and you don't feel bad. Now, if you come out there one day and you're showing symptoms and feel bad, guys will turn themselves in and say, hey, listen, I'm showing symptoms, and then they'll test you then.
Got it.
Interesting. So when do you think fans are coming back, and what do you think will take it, you know, what will it take for them to be all the way back?
That is a great question. When we started at the end of June, I remember thinking, man, we're going to play the first 4 weeks without fans. That's an eternity, but at least they'll come back on week 5. Now here we are, November 1st, talking about this. You know, I always thought the Masters would be the first one back with fans. I thought the state of Georgia, I just thought everything. And I thought people could get behind that because they want to go to the Masters. When they said no fans, it was pretty disappointing for that realm. So, you know, when you look at, we're going to start back on the West Coast, Hawaii, California, they don't seem like they're too eager to have fans, I wouldn't think. We may be the Florida swing next year. We really may, which would go into, let's say, March. And which runs right back up on a Masters in April. So as crazy as this now sounds, but I'll believe anything now. I mean, it may be until March, April of next year that we see fans back. I mean, crazy as it sounds, I think it's a reality.
So let's talk about guys playing next week. Well, let's start with you. Talk about state of your game, what you're preparing for, and kind of how you feel going into. How many Masters is this now for you?
I think this is 12. I think.
12.
Okay, so my game's been good. I've been home a lot, practicing and working on it. For me to play well there, I need to play the par fives good. I am long enough to reach them all. Maybe not with the clubs Bryson is, but I can still reach all the par fives. That is massive around Augusta. And then play the par threes and even par. Those two things there. If I can do that, that will be a good week. Those are the two big factors there. I've done a lot of putting practice, a lot of really big sloping, 4 to 8 foot putts. A lot of things like that, where it's very typical Masters, Augusta type stuff. I think come Sunday, the winner of the tournament will be the guy that did that. He played the par fives really well. If the weather holds in there and stays warm, you can still see a low score winner. But like you said, if it changes, it gets cold, it could be, similar to the year Zach Johnson won. It can be, you start getting that 18th hole playing in off the left and all that stuff. I mean, as you know, from being in Augusta, November, December, it can play long really fast. And it sounds like it plays into Bryson's hands quite a bit. Rory, Dustin Johnson, these guys. But yeah, for a player like me to play well there, it's the par fives and the par threes, even par.
So I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna take out Rory and Bryson.
Yep.
So I'm not going to let you get those two. So give me a few other guys that you think could kind of come under the radar and play well.
Xander Schauffele. Xander, I'd say him. He'd be a guy I'd watch out for. Webb Simpson. He's a guy that he's a great scorer. His short game is awesome. Bit of a, he's a grinder. He's a guy. That'd be another one. And then let me think of an off-the-wall-ish type pick.
I'm surprised you said Webb, just because, and I know Webb's gained some distance.
Yes.
But with the course as soft as you're talking about, that one surprises me a little bit.
Well, but the reason I say it is because his short game is phenomenal. He's a guy that he'll kind of surprise you. Like, he's a guy that'll come out and, I mean, when you look at the golf he's played lately, it's phenomenal. I mean, the run he's been on is really good. That's why I had him in there. And you know what? Like, for a flyer pick, I'm still waiting on Jordan Spieth to reemerge. I think he's a guy who works hard. He's a grinder. He's obviously had massive success around Augusta, and he's too good not to show back up.
Well, I'm looking ahead right now. The farthest I can see, it looks like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are all going to be currently in Augusta looking a little rainy, so a little more, even softer than what we're talking about. But the temps on Thursday right now, low of 70, high of 80. So it looks like it might be a warmer week in November. Yes. So do you think if that happens, what happens there?
I think the warmer it gets, the more people get in the mix. Basically, if it's cold and nasty and playing really long, it's going to clearly favor the long hitter. But I think the warmer and warmer it gets and stays in there, I just think the more people get in the mix. I mean, you look at that first tee, for example. I mean, if you're hitting 5 iron into that green, that green's uncomfortable with a wedge in your hand. I mean, you look at that fourth hole, the par 3 there at 255. At 48 degrees in the morning, So there's if it stays warm as you're staying there, it gets more people in the mix.
But I want to ask you about first timers. So and the first thing I'm going to do is ask you this: do you think, and I would think so, but without patrons, now there's definitely we've talked about this. You've talked about this. The patrons kind of shape the holes a little bit, which is nice. And other players on tour have talked about that in other tournaments. How sometimes it helps them shape the golf hole a little bit more pleasing to the eye. But also at Augusta, they've not played it with patrons, right? So they're not going to know any different. And maybe that makes it easier with less going on. What do you think the the having no patrons is going to do for a first timer?
Well, it's sad for the first timer because they won't get the whole Masters experience, right? Like that was one thing. Is nerve wracking as it was and is, it's still what makes it special. Now, as far as competing in the tournament, yes, it will make it easier. No question about it. There still is the Augusta National factor where even with nobody out there, you're still not comfortable. I mean, every hole out there, you can make a birdie or a double like that, and it's real. But I would say for the first timers, this is their best opportunity to play their best golf because it will be much more of a toned down Masters, Augusta National, if you will.
All right, so let me give you some names. Now, you can't. I'm not going to let you get away with Matt Wolff, your fellow Oklahoma State boy, who's just unbelievably good. So he's one. And I'm going to skip some of the amateurs and some of these guys. Yeah. You have Eric Van Rooyen.
Okay.
You have Nick Taylor. You have Scotty Scheffler, Andrew Putnam, JT Poston, Victor Perez out of the European Tour, CT Pan, Sebastian Munoz, Colin Morikawa, Nate Lashley, Jason Kokrak, Sung Kang, Sung JM, Max Homa, Lonto Griffin, Tyler Duncan, Cam Champ. Give me a few of those names that you think that's a first timer that, could make some noise. Probably not win, but could make some noise.
Yeah. Okay. So, the easy one out of there is Colin Morikawa, right? But that's the boring answer because he's really good. Yeah. By the way, he's a guy with a ball speed of 170 that's playing great golf, right? So there's your other. I'd say, JT Poston has played quietly really good. And he's become a heck of a player, very stable, nothing flashy. My favorite out of those guys you named, probably Scotty Scheffler. There's a lot to like about him, about his game, the way he plays. He's played well, like in a big stages before. I would say him on that list.
Yeah. Scotty's amazing. What do you give me a winning score prediction?
Oh, knew you were going to go there. I say 12 under. I'd say 12. And I'd say based on the weather you just told me being a bit warm like that, I would say 12 under. Yeah, 12 come Sunday would be a good number. They're still Augusta National. I mean, let's just say, for example, scores were to get low, we get perfect weather and it gets soft for whatever reason. The sub-air machines can come back on. The whole locations can start finding some funny areas. And I say 12.
Can't they turn on the sub-air? I mean, because they have sub-air through the whole golf course, don't they?
To my knowledge, they do. Yes, but they're gonna have to water the fairway so much to get that overseed to come out. Like that'll be more of a challenge. The greens, like I said, that's still the one caveat. They can still make those greens firm, and they will.
Interesting. I just thought this just popped in my head because DB's been talking about all the young guys. So I got to ask about the older guys in the field.
Yeah.
The Mees, the Charles Howells, the maybe not over 40, maybe over 35.
Yes,
exactly. You're older than he is.
I am. I'm your senior, Charles.
I know, buddy. I know.
So who are some older guys that compete? I mean, you got guys like Kuchar in the field. Westwood is a guy we've talked about. He's been playing good on the European Tour. Anybody else that kind of comes to mind that you think could play well?
Well, you just mentioned it. Lee Westwood's a guy. I had a conversation with him earlier this year in Mexico. I just, about where the age he's at, how he's able to do it. And he talked a bit, I know he's done a couple of interviews on this, about like his attitude is, you know what, I'm here at this age. I'm at the end of my career. I'm just going to enjoy it, and I don't care anymore. And if I had a bad shot, I don't really care anymore. And, that attitude, especially in golf, is quite, freeing, if you will, and whatnot. And he is one heck of a player. I mean, you start looking at his resume and what he's done over the years, what he did in Europe. He'd be a guy that I would say for sure watch him, especially if it were to get any bit kind of windy or, the weather gets a little bit wintry, if you will, an Augusta type guy. He definitely has the stones to be up there on Sunday.
I like it.
you got you know, you've been around here a lot. Like, talk about some of your buddies that are playing in this thing. Like, you got friends here. I mean, obviously, I know you're close with all the Oklahoma State guys, but
Yeah.
talk about some of your boys in this field and kind of who you think you like.
You know, when you look at it, I think the Masters in November, it's just so odd and different for everybody, where from a range of, like, Max Homa has been a guy that we've had conversations about Augusta for, right? And he's obviously super excited to be here, et cetera. And a player like that, even though it's their, let's say, first time, being in November, no patrons, et cetera, like, a guy like that could play really well and have a big week. I've been paired with Max quite a bit this fall. He drives the ball awesome. I mean, his game is really, really good at the moment. I'm a huge Rory McIlroy fan. I just like the way he does almost everything. I still think he's due for a green jacket in his closet. So I think he'll be up there. He's definitely a guy. You know, I think then I don't know why this guy always goes under the radar, but like a John Rahm, you know, for a guy look at his world ranking and he always seems to come in under the radar. I think he's a guy that'll be there. I just think the whole concept of a November Masters with no fans, I think it's just going to be bizarre for everybody. It's going to show quite a bit different on TV. I mean, heck, we got College Game Day here on Saturday. I mean, the things that you just thought you never said before, like that's the whole thing for everybody is just going to be interesting to watch.
So one of your good friends on tour for your entire career has been Tiger.
Yeah.
And you know, we've had you on here before telling some fun stories about Tiger at the President's Cup, and I'll never forget your shark diving story with Tiger.
Yes.
Talk about what you've seen from him lately. He's not been playing his best, but defending champ of the 2020 Masters right now. And kind of talk about what you've seen, what you've talked to him about or heard from him. I actually heard he was here in Augusta a couple days ago playing, and then kind of his outlook for this year.
Well, if there's one thing we've all learned, he's never a guy to bet against. So, he definitely, he's a bit like Nick Saban. Just don't bet against the guy. And, you know, coming in, I mean, listen, I know that from, he's changed his workouts, his body's better. You know, watching him at Sherwood, I know Aqua didn't play his best golf, but he still like he was moving better. And, you know, his experience around Augusta, and like nobody has hit more critical and important and big shots than that guy around there. So he's really seen it all around there. So he's always the guy come Augusta is going to be there. I still go back to one of the most incredible golf performances ever was when he came off his, you know, extended break and layover and finished fourth there. Is unbelievable. Like I still, so that clearly shows you that he loves Augusta and he loves the golf course and has clearly played well there. He's never a guy to bet against. No chance.
Yeah. Can't count Tiger out for sure. He showed us that time and time again.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we appreciate it, man. This was fun. It was good to talk Augusta with you, man. I wish we could, you know, come out there and see you guys play this coming week, and but we wish you all the best, and of course we'll be all tuned in every single minute. And hey, listen, would love to hear some reports from you. Like if you're out there, you know, report back and be like, let me tell you how weird this was. You know, I wasn't expecting this. I'm sure there's probably going to be some things too that you're going to be like, damn, I didn't even think about that.
Okay. Well, we'll do it for sure. Well, listen, I appreciate you having me on. We'll stay in touch a bunch next week and get back on and do this. And we'll send some pictures your way too. I'm sure it'll be quite interesting.
Yeah. That would be cool. That'd be cool.
Well, you Charles guys have a good day. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, man. We appreciate you.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
See ya.
All right. See you, buddy.